Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story of the day is regarding White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre having to clean up a big old messy. And no, it wasn't Joe's diaper. It was her own mess based off an answer that she gave about the rise of anti-Semitism from Monday's White House press briefing. Now, we did cover it here on the Bald Brad Show in yesterday's episode, so if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you go check that one out. But we do have the clip itself of her answer that went omega viral and got major pushback, not just from Republicans, but also Democrats. Here's the question, and here's the response.
His level of concern right now about the potential rise of anti-Semitism in light of everything that's going on in Israel.
So a couple of things. We have not seen any credible threats. I know there's been always questions about credible threats, and so just want to make sure that that's out there. But look, Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. And certainly President Biden understands that many of our Muslim, Arab Americans and Palestinian American loved ones.
Folks, if you're wondering what the hell I'm doing, I'm just looking for the answer to the question that was proposed that was about the rise of anti-Semitism, and she's going to come out and say there was no credible threats in terms of the rise of anti-Semitism, even though you just had a massive group of terrorists enter into Israel and mow over a bunch of Jews. Not to mention there are people being killed in synagogues in the United States and around the world. But there's no rise in anti-Semitism. You have Iran wanting to wipe Israel off the face of the earth right now, chanting death to America in the streets in their chambers, along with Hamas and other people. But there's no rise in anti-Semitism. And then somehow she's going to spin it and talk about Muslims and Arabs. The question was not about Muslims and Arabs. It was about the rise of anti-Semitism. Oh, well, it's not happening. It doesn't exist. Like, wow. You guys, she gets paid $180,000. $180,000 for this type of stuff.
And neighbors are worried about the hate being directed at their communities, and that is something you heard the president speak to in his address just last Thursday. And so one of the things that the president has done is directed his team, Homeland Security team, to prioritize prevention and disruption of any emerging threats that could harm the Jewish, the Muslim, Arab Americans, or any other communities. And that is something that the president has sought to do and since day one. As you know, the president ran on protecting communities, obviously, but bringing people together, protecting the soul of the nation, and so that is something that the president takes very, very seriously, and we're going to continue to denounce any sort of hate towards any American here, and so that's what we're going to continue to be steadfast on. Again, he has.
Jesus, man, I don't mean to use the Lord's name in vain, but that is not worth $180,000 a year, folks. I have high schoolers that could speak better than that. So she took to Twitter hours after that response and said, to be clear, the president and our team are very concerned about a rise in anti-Semitism, especially after the horrific Hamas terror attack in Israel. Yeah, no duh, but that's not what you said. That's not what you said at all. And that's why other people took to Twitter, also known as X. This one's from Megyn Kelly saying, weird how you didn't say that when asked directly. And the reason why that response from Megyn Kelly hits so hard and slaps Karine Jean-Pierre right across the face is because Karine Jean-Pierre chalked this all up to, oh, I just didn't hear the question correctly. Like, what? Another person said, to be clear, it did not seem that you or the president are very concerned at all about the rise in Jew hatred. Say it from the podium. Don't take the Twitter account, in a nutshell, to respond to all this stuff. Say it on the podium. So she must have took it to heart because she did, in fact, take to the podium during today's, or should I say yesterday's, White House press briefing that we're covering today, leading the briefing with this statement. Just let me know if you feel the passion in her voice as she gives us basically an apology. And for those that's on audio, I just put that in air quotes because there's no apology here. Let's listen to it.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right. I want to make something clear at the top because I understand how important moral clarity is, especially at this time. So when Jews are targeted because of their beliefs or their identity, When Israel is singled out because of anti-Jewish hatred, that is anti-Semitism, and that is unacceptable. There's no place for anti-Semitism, full stop, period. This is important to the president. It's important to me personally and to everyone in the administration. Following the Hamas terror attacks in Israel, which were the deadliest for Jews since the Holocaust, the president has been consistent and clear. We must all do our part and forcefully speak out against anti-Semitism. And we must ensure that there is no place for hate in America. Not against Jews, not against Muslims, not against Arab Americans, not against Palestinian Americans, not against anyone. So I wanted to start there today. And with that, I'd like to...
Folks, that was a minute response. I didn't feel the passion. I really didn't. If she was that sincere about it, she would have memorized it, but she's reading out of a binder, which makes me wonder, did you even write the thing yourself, or did some staffer, some low-level dude from like Georgetown write that thing for you? It's just so crazy. $180,000, and this is what we get. This is what we get from the White House. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. Look what we're paying Joe. We're paying Joe to freaking go sit on the beaches of Delaware and put his feet in the sand and hit a golf ball backwards. So that's what we're paying. And it wasn't just Megyn Kelly and others taking to Twitter. We also have former White House press secretary Ari Fleischer saying, this is the most tone-deaf answer ever. The question was about anti-Semitism, and Karine Jean-Pierre talks about threats to Muslim Americans. I guess the fact that Jews were attacked doesn't register with her. No, it doesn't. I mean, look at that original response that she gave. It was head spinning. That's me being polite. So if that isn't head spinning enough, we do have another clip here from yesterday's White House press briefing where John Kirby, in a nutshell, is asked, what letter grade would you give Joe Biden on his foreign policy? Now, before we listen to the clip, for the sake of supporting the show, hit that like and subscribe button, of course. But let me know in the comment section, please, just take a moment. What letter grade would you give Joe Biden? An A on foreign policy? Or if you want to do overall, write an overall. A B, a C, a D, an F. There's nothing goes lower than an F. Let me know what you post. I'm giving you a moment to write it. And then let's see what John Kirby says here. And let me know if he's dealing with reality.
A quick question about Australia. Apologies. Sort of as you have the Australian Prime Minister coming tomorrow in the midst of all of this activity around the Mideast, can you just give us a sense from the president's perspective, how is he balancing these two sort of immediate foreign policy objectives versus sort of his longer term foreign policy objectives that the Prime Minister's visit sort of embodies?
Well, he's balancing it well.
He's
He's doing it. I mean, if you want to give him a report card, A+. I mean, he's commander in chief. That never stops, and the duties and responsibilities are literally global. I mean, we are one nation that has truly global responsibilities, and he's managing it all. Now, it would be really helpful if he could also get the support of Congress up on Capitol Hill, particularly for this supplemental funding. It will be immensely.
This is all because of Congress, you guys. Give Joe Biden A+. I wonder if John's sitting back and just going, you know what? Things are just so stupid. Let me give the most ridiculous, stupid answer I possibly can that is nowhere in the realm of being truthful, and let's just see what happens. And that was the response that he gave, and he's obviously continuing the ramble here.
Simpler and easier for the president to manage all these multiple crises if we could get that funding for Ukraine, the funding for Israel, the funding for the Indo-Pacific strategy, and of course down at the border.
It's really amazing. You notice he threw it down at the border there. So maybe that was one of the few times we're actually going to hear the White House acknowledge that the border is a crisis, because he talked about all these crises that are taking place. But he throws in the border as a shoo-in right there at the end, as if he couldn't solve that on his own. And that Joe Biden has been blaming Congress, other administration, Putin for some reason, Xi for another reason, on what's taking place at the southern border. All the while we know that there's terrorists that have come in through the southern border alone, and that now Iran and their terrorist proxy groups are going to start coming through the border or already have, per a memo that was sent out about 4 days ago to Border Patrol agents from CBP. So yes, you heard that correctly. There are terrorists in our country right now because of Joe Biden. The same Joe Biden that wants to give Gaza $100 million, not wants to, did give Gaza $100 million. And the same day, our State Department comes out and says, oh, by the way, most likely that's going to go into the hands of Hamas. Yes, a terrorist organization that's run roughshod over Israel and a bunch of Jews, of which Karine Jean-Pierre said, hey, there's not a rise in anti-Semitism. Does anybody see how insane of a time we're living in, that this stuff is coming from a White House? In the same way that John Kirby the other day would not answer the question, I shouldn't even just say the other day, multiple White House press briefings, whether the $6 billion that they want to send to Iran was or was not frozen, and if Iran requested it, would they get it or not? We still don't have a clear answer on that, by the way. All the while, Iran is basically funding Hamas, Hezbollah, and other terrorist organizations around the world to go after Jews and Americans. Hamas killed Americans, you guys. Understand that. Hamas killed Americans, and we're still going to give them money. I've always said this, and for those that are frequent listeners and viewers of the Bald Brad Show, amidst of Afghanistan to the border to our energy crisis that's taking place, to our foreign policy, to the mishandling of multiple fronts, from China sending a spy balloon over America and gathering intelligence that way, to the Chinese putting spies through the southern border and gathering intelligence that way, to the Chinese putting a spy base in Cuba and gathering intelligence that way, to the Chinese putting warships off the coast of Taiwan and just publicly saying that at some point in time, we're going to invade this bad boy, to Iran helping terrorist proxy groups around the world, to Hamas going into Israel and running roughshod over Jews, beheading babies, men, women, and children, raping people, raping young women. There's rumors out there now that they're raping like adolescent children, breaking their pelvis bone because of the horrors and the atrocities that they're doing. I mean, I can go on and on from this administration. You never saw any of this under Trump. And again, people will still vote for the guy. The dude is giving assets to terrorists, and they will still vote for the guy. Even if you're like, hey, you know what? I love everything else he's doing. I'll let that one go about the $6 billion or the $100 million, whatever you want to say. $6 billion to Iran, $100 million to Gaza. What about everything else Joe's doing that's terrible? They're blind to it, and we have to understand that they're blind to it. You got to get out to the polls. We're on the verge of a freaking World War III. If that doesn't get our asses out to the polls, there's nothing that my show, any other show, can do for you. If you're handicapped, get a ballot still. Get it shipped to your house or whatever it is. And you know what? Make sure you go give a loved one or yourself, you make sure that that bad boy gets turned in. Because we all know what the ballot harvestings and the shenanigans that these Democrats are going to do again. We already know. The mail-in and the foo-foo and the foosery that went on, we can't allow that to happen again. Because you see, when we don't get out to the polls, when we allow foosery to take place, look what goes on. You're seeing it right now. So we can't be sleeping, folks. And I mean this in all seriousness. We can't be sleeping on this. He's got China moving warships in the Mediterranean Sea right now to combat our warships, which is, there's no equivalency. But there's some serious ish going on, and it could affect all of us because you have terrorists in this country right now. We got to start vetting people. We got to start taking stuff a little bit more seriously. I'm not saying you're not, but Republicans need to step up because what our congressmen and women are doing in the House right now with Republicans is insane. We need to get our shit together real quick. So here's Jackie Heinrich of Fox News questioning John Kirby once again on the shenanigans from the White House.
John, does the administration agree with the UN Secretary General's statement today that the Hamas attacks, quote, did not happen in a vacuum?
I don't know what he meant by that, so I'm not. I
can read you
I'm not sure. I didn't see the comments, and I'm not sure what the context is.
He said that it's important to recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. They've seen their land steadily devoured by settlements, plagued by violence. It goes on. That statement infuriated a lot of Israelis. I want to know if the administration disagrees with what he said.
The president has spoken very clearly, and I think very forcefully, on who's to blame here for October 7th. It's Hamas. It's not the Israelis. It's not the innocent Israeli people that were slaughtered going to a music festival. It was Hamas. They planned this thing for many months, maybe even as long as a year. Hamas is to blame. Hamas is to blame.
On that note, is the assessment still the same that Iran did not directly play a role in this attack? Because you had Senator Blumenthal saying over the weekend.
I never said that Iran did not play a role. What we've said, and there's been no change, what we said, Jackie, is Iran is certainly complicit here. Without them, there is no Hamas. Without them, there's no Hezbollah. Without them, there's no militia groups firing rockets at our troops in Iraq and Syria. And as I said yesterday up here, we recognize Iran's monitoring all these events, and in some cases, they're encouraging some of these attacks. No question about it. Now, you talk about October 7th. We still haven't seen any direct, specific intelligence that says they were witting or participating or directing the attacks of October 7th.
I don't know if I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt here, because IDF has come out and said they've already traced direct evidence to Iran giving Hamas weapons by obtaining the very weapons. So how can you say there's not direct evidence when in fact we do? And the only way that's not direct evidence is if you're going to say the Israelis are lying. Somebody's lying here. It's either Israel or it's John Kirby, and I don't know who to believe anymore. And this is the problem with how John Kirby has been in his messaging in this White House altogether. I don't believe anything that they say because of the crap that they've fed us for the last 2.5 years that we've covered here on the show for the last 2.5 years. I mean, hell, you guys know this. We cover almost every White House press briefing there is. I definitely watch every damn one. Whether we cover it or not, I still watch it. It's sad that I can't even trust my own governmental officials here over a foreign ally. I don't know. I don't know whether to believe him or not. Let me know if you guys do, because I think there's direct evidence and I think he's lying.
But as I said, broadly complicit, no question about that. And I'm sure that our Israeli counterparts will, in due time, take a harder look at the intelligence picture and what might have been missed, what gaps there were, but I'll let them speak to that.
Can you just speak to the shift in language we heard yesterday out of the Pentagon? Last week no one would confirm on the record that these attacks were coming from Iranian proxy groups, but then Brigadier General Pat Ryder said the U.S. holds Iran responsible. Is the U.S. taking this as a signal that Iran is in fact trying to widen the war?
We see that they are backing these groups, no question about that. We have sent a strong signal of deterrence. There's no indication right now that any other nation, state, or actor is preparing or imminently to escalate this conflict, but we're watching this very, very closely. And again, I want to be clear here. Nobody's turning a blind eye to Iran's complicity. Their support for these militia groups in Iraq and Syria, their support for terrorists throughout the region. We have addressed that through additional sanctions. We have addressed it through additional military force posture. We're obviously going to do what we have to do to protect ourselves and our troops. Nobody's at all turning away from that threat or their historic and sustained support for these terrorist groups.
I am so blown away with the messaging that just a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, we were having the conversation about sending Iran $6 billion for humanitarian aid, which is a fungible expenditure or fund. That basically, hey, you're freeing up or you're shoring up money for Iran in the tune of $6 billion that would have been used for humanitarian aid, now to be used on their behalf to help all these proxy groups around, these terrorist groups around the world, which you just mentioned, John, was happening. So now that you send them $6 billion and it frees up all that other money to now fund terrorism, in a nutshell is what Joe Biden's doing. But then you give us this walk around answer for 20 plus questions at least regarding the money, whether it's frozen or not frozen. But yet you're going to tell us you're going to be clear. But yet during yesterday's White House press briefing, you're also going to mention the whole fact that, well, we know that they're funding these people, but we don't have any direct evidence. But we know in a roundabout way, in a broad way, that they're funding all these people. It's disgusting stuff, man. I mean, it really is. From the anti-Semitism non-response answer we get from Karine Jean-Pierre to these pro-Palestinian people going on Pierce Morgan's show Uncensored and walking the fine line of supporting Hamas or not supporting Hamas, to John Kirby coming out and saying, well, we don't support terrorism, but hey, here's $100 million or $6 billion. That's why I say we got to get out and vote, man. This is crazy, because if we allow this to continue, I'm not sure. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm just not sure if we have it in us for another 4 years as Americans. We're $2 trillion in deficit this year alone, which is going to make our deficit $34 plus trillion. We got to pay that back at some point, because we're kind of running into the realm of just paying off interest and never paying down the principal. What I mean by that is all our tax money is going to be going to the interest and never actually paying down the $34 trillion. But yet we're going to send $100 billion Ukraine here, here's $60 billion there. You know, now you're in the tune of, at some point, because this is a forever war, which Joe Biden promised during his campaign of, I'm going to get us out of forever wars, that, we're just going to keep funding this thing. That doesn't come from me, by the way. That literally comes from John Kirby, Karine Jean-Pierre, and Joe Biden's mouth himself, where he said as a campaign promise, I want to get out of these forever wars, but then you're going to say, hey, we're going to fund Ukraine for as long as possible. So other than the fact that we don't have any boots on the ground in Ukraine that we know about, I think that there are, how is that any different than us funding what was going on in Afghanistan, of which Joe Biden botched? And by the way, you might have another scenario of Afghanistan in Gaza, because people might be fleeing to Egypt or some other route, with Hamas mowing them down in the same way that the Afghanis were mowed down at the airport, which was talked about on the Sean Ryan show, his podcast. A former Navy SEAL interviewed a guy that was blown up. I think he was a Marine or Army member at the gate of Afghanistan, that gave all the details and has some footage of it, of the guy that actually blew him up. So I don't know what things are going to look like in 4 years when you have 10 million people that you know nothing about enter into our country. You know that there's actual terrorists in our country that are sleeper cells, meaning that you could theoretically have Trump in office and have a massive terrorist attack, and guess who's going to be blamed? According to the Democrats, Donald Trump's going to be blamed, or whoever Republican candidate's going to be in office, because it's all his fault, because it happened under his watch. All the while that person was let in through the country under a prior administration, but because it happened in the current administration, whether it's Trump or somebody else, it's going to be their fault. But I guarantee you, if Biden is elected again and it happens under his watch, the blame won't be put on him. It'll be put on Putin, Xi, Iran. I mean, whoever's doing the terrorist stuff obviously is to blame, but also is the person who could have stopped this issue from happening in the first place by not locking up the border, but vetting the people that are coming in, and if they're appropriately actually seeking asylum and it meets the standards, if it doesn't, send them back. Because all these people that are seeking asylum, the vast majority is not meeting the qualifications of asylum. They're leaving because of drought, and that was according to Kamala Harris, or they're leaving because they want better work. And by the way, the vast majority of people that are coming in aren't women and children. They're military-aged men. And it makes you wonder, what is all these men doing here that are military age, that are coming now from Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador, China, Iran? I mean, all these people from all over the globe are pouring across, and we don't know who they are. So if you're a Democrat listening to this, you got to wake up. If you're Republican, we all got to wake up here, because what is happening is not okay, and it's getting kind of scary. It's getting freaking scary, from a World War III level to our deficit level, to our foreign policy level, to our domestic level, where you can't even go to downtown cities anymore if you're in a Democrat-ran area, because of fear of either getting mugged, shot, stabbed by a random person, or hurt by a homeless person. You name it, it's all happening in Democrat-ran cities. So, I don't understand why people just can't take a gamble. Just take a gamble on a Republican, and look, if they botch it, that's fine. You know what? They suck too then. But when you live in a Democrat-ran area for 20 plus years and you're still going to blame Republicans for the outcomes that have happened in your city, you're an idiot. You're an actual idiot. And somehow you made it through your entire life being an idiot. Not everybody's born stupid, but boy, oh boy, does it take work to stay stupid. And I think that was a quote from either Reagan or Benjamin Franklin, somebody like that. But again, you're born stupid. Everybody's born stupid. But you got to work at staying stupid. And if you've been living in a Democrat-ran city, and in some cases it's been Democrat-ran for 100 years, and it's dog bleep, and it's ran terribly, then that is your fault for continuing to vote Democrat. Don't blame it on Republicans, but somehow in their cockamamie mind, some of these Democrats and these libs, these leftists, can concoct some sort of logic out of a bunch of crap, and in their mind it makes sense, but to nobody else does it really make sense. In the same way, Karine Jean-Pierre steps on this podium and gives us cockamamie answers in the same way Joe Biden does, and to them it makes sense, but nobody else in that press briefing room does it make sense to, which is why we get a lot of repeat questions in that room week after week, because nobody knows what the hell is going on, and then we're sitting here trying to run a good show, thanks to all of you, and try to make sense of all this, and we can't. So in a nutshell, I kind of look like an idiot because I'm trying to make sense of something that's nonsensical, and when I'm trying to make sense of it live on air, I'm look like an idiot trying to formulate thoughts on something that's nonsensical. Here's some sense. Vote Republican. If the dude doesn't want to clean up his act, get him the hell out of office. How about that for one? And why don't we all take a look on who's screwing up Congress right now on the Republican side of the aisle and not vote for those assholes again? I don't mean to cuss, but stop giving these people all this power. We're the patriots. We are the patriots, not these knuckleheads in Congress. I don't know. Well, I want to just thank all of you. We do have an announcement, folks. I went through. We did a price cut on the merch, 30% price cut. So at this point, it can't go any lower because we are breaking even on the merch. So at this point, it's just kind of like, hey, sport the merch, buy it. We're making pennies. I can't. So just so you know, those prices can't go lower because I would have to be paying out of pocket for it. I love you, but I don't have that kind of cash. So really, those are the lowest prices they will always be unless I find like a third party vendor that was willing to do it cheaper. So those shirts that are $20 or $25, the Teespring that does it, it won't go any lower than that. It actually won't allow me even to publish it because it says like no green. So if I make a cent off of it, we're killing it. But I just want you guys to know that. Head over to baldbrad.com. We do have a book, Trojan Horse on the Left is Destroying America. It's a timely book. It's a good book. If you want a signed copy, we do signed copies. You just have to order it from the website. I will package it and send it to you myself. Other than that, a lot of people are buying the Kindle version, folks. Buy the Kindle version. I think that's 22% off the hardcover right now on Amazon. A lot of deals happening. Would love your support. And again, some of you are buying up the mugs. A few of you said you got the black one. I don't have the black one. Maybe I should get it. The white one does great stuff. And lastly, some of you have sent me such an amazing emails. You know, you're in tough times and you want to support the show and you can't. You guys, please don't feel like you have to give money to the show. For those that are able to and you want to support the cause, of course. You just watching the show and listening to me ramble and vent is amazing because it's basically therapeutic for me. And I'm sure maybe for some of you it is just to have that confirmation bias in a way of like, oh, I'm not crazy as well and just listening to me rant. But you watching the show and or listening all the way through each and every day or whenever we go upload a video or go live, that's what really matters at the end of the day. It's the community, you guys. It's patriots. It's like-minded people that love this country. That's what I want to build here. And I've said that since the beginning. The membership is just a perk so that we could buy a new computer or we could buy a new lens, which I need. So I don't even know if you guys can hear my computer now. We haven't got the new one in. The new one doesn't come in for like another 2 weeks. It's being built. This sucker here sounds like a freaking jet engine. And when I say might explode, I do mean that. Like I'm terrified that it will light on fire. So I actually turn it off whenever I leave the house because the thing it's just going out. It's about 10 years old. And that's not an exaggeration. This thing is a decade old that I'm running this bad boy off of. So, hey, we're going to do what we got to do here to keep the show running. If you saw the get up I have here, you'd be like, Brad, that's ghetto. But it works, folks. It works. And that's all you need is a microphone and a camera to get the message out there that America is the best country in the world. We have the greatest values and we can't lose it. And I really do mean that. We cannot lose this country because this is the last place on earth that you have these values, these ideas, this creed. And once it's gone, there'll never be a country ever again that will have what we have now. And we got to do everything we can to save it. We'd love your support. Become a true American patriot today. Hit that like and subscribe button. Leave us a comment down below. Again, the question of the day is, what grade would you give Joe Biden? I would give him an F. The guy sucks. I mean, he is up there with Obama. He might be worse than Obama based on his handling of everything. And Obama was freaking terrible. With that being said, as I mentioned, share this link with your friends and family all over social media. Thank you so much for your kindness and support. You just watching the show all the way through, hitting the like and subscribe button is enough. Don't feel like you have to give your money. If you want to get merch, we got it there. If you want to get a book, we got it there. If you want to visit the website, we got it there. All the links are in the description. And folks, I'll see you tomorrow here on The Bill Brad Show.